Just waiting for it to say we're live. Yeah, we're live. It says, good morning, everyone. How are you today? Hope you're having a good Tuesday morning, or if you're catching this replay, whatever time of the day it is. And today, our topic is on helping our dogs, or how to identify what our dogs need to self-regulate. And we're going to be talking a little bit about decompression as well. Hi, Cecile. Thanks for jumping on live with me. And but before we get started on that, as usual, I like to talk about my oil of choice for this week. And today, my oil of choice is lemongrass. There we go. Can't see it properly. Lemongrass, if you can read backwards. So lemongrass it has a lovely fragrance. Many of you may know it's similar to something like citronella, which is not quite the same as lemongrass, as in its constituents, but it is of the same same family. And this is a beautiful one from, oh, sorry, I've just spilled oil all over the bottle. It's going to take it off my hands. So it's got a beautifully lemon scent. It actually comes from a grass, and some of you may know it as a culinary herb that you use. It's often used in Eastern cuisine. It's got gives it a fresh, lovely taste, but it's got quite a thick root system, a sort of a bulby thing, and very spiky, rough, coarse. What is the word? Rough, tough sort of grass top to it. And putting that in food gives this beautiful fresh lemony fragrance, but not as strong as lemon. It's more a grassy green sort of lemon flavor to it, to food, and it's got the same scent to it. So a gently lemon, should we say, but also a very powerful oil in its constituents. So one of its main uses is as a insect repellent, and this is definitely one of my ingredients that I put into my mixture, specifically for my tick mixture that I make for the dogs. When this, in the summer months coming soon, we're going to start. And lemongrass is definitely one of those, as is citronella, used as an insect repellent. You burn citronella candles outside in summertime for mosquitoes and things like that. Lemongrass is the pure essential oil that has really strong properties as far as insect repellent goes. So that's one of the main uses. But it also is surprisingly calming. It has a beautiful calming effect on the nervous system. And it's also one of the oils that has both. So it's very calming on the nervous system and also stimulating, because if you smell it, it's that beautiful fresh smell. So it gives you a lovely, it uplifts the mood and gives you a beautiful fresh new take on life, as it were. So it's uplifting as well as being really calming. It has sedative properties in it. It also has analgesic properties, which means pain relief. And this is one that I use for Charlie in the summer months for his chronic arthritis and things like that. It's great for neuralgia. It's great for rheumatism. It's great for musculoskeletal issues. So a good additive. And I use it in the summer months, because in the winter I see he tends to go more for the warming oil, which is the ginger. He likes the ginger more often in the winter time for his, seems to help him. Specifically at night to settle if he's feeling a bit stiff and sore. But in the summer months, I offer him lemongrass. Well, I offer him both, and he generally takes lemongrass rather. So a beautiful one as well, to give you that fresh uplifting, but also to help with chronic pain. It's also good for stomach cramps, for digestive issues, chronic digestive issues, not to take internally, but just to smell, or to rub on the belly if you're yourself on your own belly, with a little bit of diluted into a little bit of fractionated coconut oil, or a cream, or whatever you want to put in a massage. Would you please share the anti-tick magic formula? Yes, I will. I will do that. There's quite a few oils in there, but I will definitely share that. Thanks, Cecile. Yeah, so lovely for stomach cramps as well, for digestive issues. So a really, really versatile oil. Definitely one that you should have in your kit. If you have a little home kit of oils, lemongrass is definitely one of them. And I'll just read some of the other things that it's often used for. It's often used for diarrhea or stomach digestive upsets, for flea and mosquito repellent, we said, fungal infections, lymphatic drainage, nervous exhaustion, neuralgia, rheumatism, soft tissue damage, tumors, viral infections, anxiety, confusion, depression. So a lot of different uses there. And as I say, certainly one I enjoy, and a beautiful fresh scent. I've put some in my hand cream today, and it's really lovely. It's generally very well tolerated, but it can be irritating to the skin. So for those of you who have a sensitive skin, or particularly if you feel that the necessary need to put it on your dogs, although I wouldn't unless your dog really shows that they want it, is to dilute it in, make sure that it's diluted before you put some on you. So I put it mine just in a drop of hand cream today. So that was lovely. Good morning. I'm not sure who else is saying good morning to me, but I can see somebody else is here. So good morning, and thank you very much for joining me. All right, so that was our oil of choice today. We're going to get on to our topic now, which is how can we help our dogs to self-regulate? Or what does your dog, in particular, your dog need to self-regulate? So last week we spoke a little bit about calming signals and what they had to do with possible self-regulation. So let's just, some of that will be coming through into this conversation today, but let's just remind ourselves what is self-regulation. And sometimes I think we can get a little bit confused between self-regulation and decompression after stress. So self-regulation is when we can recognize our emotions. We're aware of them, we can recognize them, and generally we want to down regulate our emotion. If we're feeling uptight or anxious, we want to down regulate that, which means we want to become calmer and more present and more grounded. Or we may want to up regulate that in order to feel more happy and joyous. Perhaps we're feeling really down and miserable, and we'd like to regulate that up and be more open and social, and just have fun and more joy in our life, as opposed to feeling depressed and sad. So that's regulation. Regulation is being aware of it and having different techniques or strategies that you use in order to do that, in order to regulate your emotions, so to put yourself into another emotional state. And generally we talk about it mostly as a down regulation thing, as a when, specifically for reactive dogs, or people who get really easily anxious. We want to down regulate that. We want to ground it and down, dampen it down before it becomes an explosion. So if we think about it, and we're doing some lovely techniques at the moment in the Calm Connection workshop, where we're exploring different things that you can do on your own or with your dog, etc., to help you do that, to recognize your emotion, and to take action into doing something that's going to help you to regulate, to self-regulate. And we did things like, a little bit of breathing. We've done some EFT tapping. We've done a game called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you learn to ground yourself in the environment by becoming present using things in nature. We've looked at grounded walking, where we become really grounded and centered and present during our walking. And these are all strategies that we can use once we practice them and they become familiar to us. These can be our go-to strategies. So when we feel that anxiety rising, we feel our muscles tensing, we can catch that, be aware of it, and then do one of these techniques to help us to self-regulate. So what about our dogs? They don't go to yoga classes and learn breathing techniques and mindfulness and all of those things. So those are mainly our strategies that we use. But what about our dogs? So before we go on to our dogs, I'm going to ask Cecile and anybody else who's listening do you have a specific strategy for self-regulation? So do you realize when you might be suddenly feeling anxious or not fully present and grounded? And do you have something that really helps you to regulate in the moment, either just before it happens, before that anxiety sort of takes hold of you, or on a regular basis? Do you have some kind of mindfulness practices to keep you in that calm, grounded state? So I would love to hear from you. If you would like to just post in the chat, is there a specific exercise technique or something that you do, a strategy that you have already in place, which you enjoy to self-regulate? So that's really what self-regulation is all about. And like I said, sometimes we confuse it a little bit with decompression, which is what you might do after a stressful event. Now, some of them can definitely overlap. Some of them can definitely be very similar or even the same strategies. But for instance, let's say you've had a really stressful day, and you just want to dump all that stress and get rid of it. What is your technique and what is your strategy, your go-to strategy for releasing that stress that's in your body? And getting rid of it so that you can then start to self-regulate again. We've got to dump that cortisol somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. It's got to get out of our system first, before we can really start to down-regulate. So what do you do after an event that is really stressful for you? Some people, conscious breathing works for me. Thank you, Gunhild. So conscious breathing is definitely, most people really enjoy that sort of breathing, because we can then actually slow down our heartbeat, slow down our breathing, and become very centered and grounded. Cecile says, I usually catch it too late, aside from regular meditation and breathing. Yes. So your regular meditation and breathing is really going to help you in the long run, Cecile, because that's certainly going to be something that you could start to use. Okay, we're going to talk about this now, but it's catching it before that. But B, those kind of things certainly afterwards. Doing some meditation, some breathing may help you to get rid of that cortisol, to think through that process of what happened and actually understand it better, accept yourself, accept the situation, whatever it needs to be done in order to release that emotion. Okay, great. Please drive carefully, Cecile. Yeah, so that's certainly one of the, we all have different strategies. We all have different strategies. But what's key there, and I'm going to bring it up now because Cecile mentioned it, is learning to catch it before it happens. Because once we're in that fight-flight state, once our nervous system has moved into that sympathetic nervous system has been activated and turned on, it's very difficult, if impossible, to regulate right there and then, okay? Because you are in a full-blown sympathetic response. And in that time, our frontal cortex is turned off, our emotions are kicked in full, the adrenaline is there, it's driving those emotions. So it's very difficult in the moment. So this is why we practice mindfulness and learning to be aware of our feelings throughout the day, all the time, so that we become more present with, oh, I can feel that, before you have a full-blown anxiety attack, you're going to have perhaps a niggling in your stomach. You may have an uncomfortable feeling in your stomach. You may start to feel the tension in your shoulders rising. You may start to feel your heart going a little bit faster. Or you may just stand there and think, gosh, I feel really ungrounded. I feel like my thoughts are everywhere and I feel really unpresent in the moment. And that is a practice. We need to practice checking in with our bodies and with ourselves all the time, so that we can catch that before it gets into a state where it's really difficult then to down-regulate. So this is what we're doing in the workshop, and this is what I'd really like to encourage you to do, is check in with yourself regularly throughout the day. Check in with your body. How do I feel? What are the signs and symptoms in my own body that I feel when I can see that my anxiety rising or my fear rising? What is that? And what does it feel like in my body? Once we can recognize it, we can start to catch it earlier, and then it's much easier to down regulate using those techniques like breathing or becoming grounded in the minute, tap it, whatever it is that we need. So I hope that answers your question, Cecilia. You're doing great. Now you just need to start recognizing what kind of symptoms in your body are giving you the clues that things are not feeling so great. And then you can use your things like meditation and breathing to work through that. If you needed to in the moment, you would obviously not have to sit down and meditate, but a simple awareness exercise in that moment might really be helpful. So yeah, so that's how we deal with it. And you can see that each person has a different kind of a different technique that they prefer, that works better for them in the way that they like doing it, because we're all individuals. And it's the same for our dogs. They also have different ways of coping with stress, of dealing with stress, of self-regulating. And it depends on so many factors. It depends on, could be their breed traits. It could be something to do with their personality type. It could be to do with their past experiences about, with fearing, anxiety, or over arousal, or whatever it is. It has a lot to do with their previous experiences. So each one, again, is going to be different. So we can't put a blanket training strategy on and say, well, this is what I'm going to do to help. If I teach my dog self-control, then they know how to self-regulate. No, we've spoken about that in another one. Self-control and self-regulation have little to do with each other. They can be used interchangeably sometimes, but it's not necessarily going to help the underlying emotion, specifically in difficult times. So what else do we do then? What we, as I say, what kind of mindfulness techniques can we teach our dogs? Or what can we recognize in them, better still, is what they need. Okay, so instead of us thinking, well, let me try this, let me try that, let me try the next thing, we start with observing our dogs. We start with looking at who they are as individuals and how they would naturally deal with it if we weren't getting involved too much. And we can do this by observing things like, when you see, let's say you're out on a walk and your dog doesn't like other dogs. Let's just say that for a change, okay? Or doesn't like other people. We give them the time and the space, and I'm talking about a big space, really big space, from a distance, so that they can still see that person or dog, but they're not in any reactive state. Okay, so they're not barking and lunging and doing all of that. They're way before that. They see somebody in the distance, we move off, we give them lots of space, and we allow them to watch. What is their reaction to that? Do they just sit calmly and watch? And do they feel, maybe show some calming symptoms, as calming signals, as that person sort of approaches and then goes past? And then what do they do straight after that? Or is your dog, and this is something I realized that Charlie used to do, when he used to see somebody approaching from the distance and we would move off to the side, the first thing he would do would be to go and find something to put in his mouth. He would go and find a stick, a toy. Well, if we were anywhere at home, it might be a toy, but if it was out, it was a stick. Or if I had a toy with me, he would certainly ask for the toy. He wanted A, engagement with me. He wanted B, movement. He needed to move. And C, he needed something to ground in his mouth. And these were things that he did. I didn't teach him to do it. These were things that he felt that he needed in the moment in order for it to cope. And he still does it. If we have dogs approaching us, even dogs that we know, specifically on our walk that we know, regular dogs, and they come towards us and, they start interacting and sort of sniffing each other and just having a bit of a social hello, he will do that. He'll do a quick hello, and then he will go and find something and bring it to me. He will bring me whatever he can find in order to say, I need an out. I need an out now. I want you to engage with me. I want you to play with me. I want you to have a look at the stick that I'm holding in my mouth. That's really important for me. So he showed me in situations what he needs to help him to down regulate, to keep him feeling safe in those circumstances. And we can do this by simply observing our dogs, simply observing our dogs. Layla needs, she needs space. So she sort of will go around the outside. She needs more space to be able to find her space in a group or with these people coming, etc. She needs extra space away from them, extra distance away from them to feel comfortable first. And once she recognizes them, she goes up and greets and does whatever. But she needs that time and space to observe first. Okay. So she would be one better. Let's say I had to pass somebody on a path and I needed to move off. Layla would be one to rather sit next to me. She would like to sit next to me and have me there with her, and she can observe the person going past. And once they've gone past, then she can continue and feel safe that way. So for her, it's observing, it's keeping whatever it is that person or that dog in her visual, and being able to have that information, process it, realize that she's safe, and that's her way of doing it. So she would prefer to stop and watch people go by. Charlie, as I said, needs movement. If I asked him to sit and wait and stay while somebody was going past, he would start really getting anxious because he needs to move. He needs to do something. He needs to distract himself with a toy or a sniffing or a something. He needs action. And this is what I'm asking you to go out and do, is look at what your individual dog needs in the moment to help that self-regulation process, so that they can feel safe. They can see something, they can process it, they can say, I feel safe. They may do their calming signals to help them to do that in the moment, some licking, some swallowing, some head turns, some shake-offs, whatever they need to do in the minutes to help regulate their system. But we've given them the time, the distance, and the choice of how they would like to self-regulate in that moment. So they're teaching themselves the skills. We're just supporting them and giving them the time, space, and the choice to do it. And once we can get that right, once we can see what works for them, we can start building on that. So we can say, right, that really works for my dog. I'm going to use this strategy more and more and see if he can help himself to self-regulate more. So I hope whoever's listening, whoever's perhaps seeing this a little bit later, that is helpful for you, that you can see possibly where you might be able to use this to find your dog's unique strategies of how to self-regulate. A lot of the time, dogs need grounding through their mouth. So dogs who are extremely vocal, dogs who are like Charlie, like a lot of movement in order to feel safe, those are generally the dogs who need to use their jaw in order to ground them. So, like I said, like he picks up something in his mouth to chew or carry. So very often you see a lot of dogs who like to carry a toy on their walk, or who like to hold the leash in their mouth while they're walking, for instance. That is a strategy that they have likely learned that helps to ground them. Because remember, we talked about grounding ourselves, becoming present and grounded. That may be strategies that they've developed in order to help ground themselves. Charlie is one who also loves to ground on something when we have visitors, so that his arousal doesn't get over the top. He likes to ground himself on a toy or something that he has. So think about what you have that your specific dog has, that you could observe and see what feels right for them, what helps them, what supports them, that through their own choice. But we need to be able to give them choices in order to do that too. So not just observing, sometimes offering different things. Should we move? Would you prefer sitting? Do you want to put something in your mouth? What are the different things that you could offer your dog to see their response to that, and see how they feel about grounding in different ways, grounding or self-regulating. And then the last little piece is just about what to do after. So this is the de-stress, the decompression of how they get rid of that cortisol in, after an event that's been perhaps a little bit stressful. And most dogs like to move. Most dogs like to move in those situations. They like to play, they like to run, they like to do the zoomies, whatever that is, in order to get rid of that cortisol. It could also be a lot of chewing, tearing things up, give them a cardboard box and let them just rip that cardboard box up. That's going to actually help to get rid of that cortisol and help them to get rid of all the stress in their bodies and that emotion, so that then they can, settle and down regulate. Some dogs need a real quiet space. They just want quiet. They just want alone time, and they just want to sleep. Like some humans do. Some humans also just want to go and just sleep and have quiet and peace and no interruptions and just some self time, as it were. So perhaps that's what your dog needs to de-stress afterwards. Perhaps a step later, you need then to lift your mood. So something like dancing, singing, putting on your favorite music, going to speak to friends, I don't know, watching your favorite TV show, reading, being creative, all those kind of things are going to then help to lift your mood again, to get you back up to that feeling of equilibrium and back into that green zone, as we call it, to enjoy life and be more safe, calm, and happy. So those are some of the things that I suggest. Those are some of the things that I use regularly. So I would love to hear from you. What do you use? What do you think your dog needs in the moment? And just remember, it's before they go into that orange zone, it's before they go into that reactive zone, that we want to help them, to teach them strategies to self-regulate then, not right in the minute. In the minute, once they're in that zone, it's too late. Okay, then we need to look at the decompression and de-stress activities that will help them. So, okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this helpful. Let us know what you do with your dogs, what you've noticed in your dogs, or going forward, what you would like to try and see that will help them to self-regulate. So thanks for listening, ladies. Thanks, everybody. Wishing you a wonderful day. And if you have any comments, you can continue to post them. Thank you, Gunhild. Thank you for joining me this morning. And I hope you folks all have a wonderful day. Give your dogs a hug and go out there and be brilliant. Bye-bye.